Alright, we're going to look at a couple different examples of different forms of linear equations. And in order to really dive into different forms of equations, you have to be able to identify some of the pieces. And one of the biggest pieces you're looking at is this term, the slope. And the slope is going to tell you the slant of your line. And so there's, as you can see here, I've got a couple different examples, and notice all four of these examples here are all written out and displayed in different forms and ideas. So this first one is considered to be your coordinate points. And so what happens here is we're just giving you 2 points, and so to find this slope you have to use the slope formula. So that says y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now, for most, what that actually boils down to is we call that the change in y over change in x. Now, this little delta sign here, or this little triangle, means delta, and what it means is change in. So we're going to change the y value and change the x value, and we do that by finding the difference. Okay, so you have to identify which point you want to be x1, y1 and which point you want to be x2, y2. And it's totally up to you. Notice we have 2 different points to choose from, so you could solve your slope forwards and backwards. Again, just depending on what it is you want to do. And so here I might say that this is, I don't know, let's go x2, y2 makes this x1, y1. Now I like to, in some instances, I like to label my points before I start plugging them in so that I keep myself on the right track. And so here what's going to happen is that I have to do y2, so I've got -1 minus y1, so minus 4, all over x2, which is 5, minus a -2, so plus 2. And so we have to simplify that, so -1 minus 4 is going to give you a -5, and then 5 plus 2 is 7. So in this case, your slope is 5 over 7. Now, since I'm only looking for the slope, this is all you have to do. Now in this next little problem, you can see that we have this really strange, odd looking equation, and what you essentially have to do is you have to manipulate this equation here to get it into linear. So one of the ways we do that is I would get rid of your denominator. And so we do that by multiplying the entire equation by that denominator, which was 4. So we're going to multiply this first term by 4, and that's going to leave us with x minus 1. Now notice, the second term here is this whole entire term. And I've got this 2 out in front, and I have not distributed it yet. So when I multiply this term by 4, I'm really just multiplying it out front. So this becomes plus 8 times the y minus 3 equals, and then 4 times 4 gives you that -16x. Now notice my denominator is gone, and so here I have to distribute my 8 through. So this becomes x minus 1 plus an 8y minus 24 equals the -16x. So our goal here is to solve for y, and so there's quite a few ways that we can end up doing that. First is I would take this x value and I would move it to the other side, and then I would also combine this -1 with the -24. So what we end up getting here is that 8y minus 25 is equal to -17x. Move the 25 over, we get that 8y is equal to -17x plus 25. Divide everything by 8, and we get that y is equal to negative 17 over 8x plus 25 over 8. Now, a lot of students stop here and think they're done, but what was the actual question we were looking for? Well, the question was find the slope. And in this case, what we have to remember is that we have the form y equals mx plus b. So in our case here, your slope, or that m value, is the negative 17 over 8, and that's it. Okay? So you need to make sure that you answer your question that you have been asked. Now we have these two special cases down here. This first one is a y equals case. So what you can notice here is that you do not have any mx value or term. Okay, so if you look at it, you just have y equals 3. You don't actually have the mx term. Because of that, what we say is that means your slope here is 0. And that's because this would be a horizontal line. Now for an x equals equation, this right here has is that you do not have a y equals mx plus b form. Therefore, your slope here is called undefined because you have a vertical line. Okay, so these are your two special cases. So you need to keep those in mind whenever you are looking at slopes, and make sure that you identify if you have a special case or not. Now, another form of your linear equations can be graphing, and notice here we want you to use the slope and the y-intercept. To do that, you have to rewrite this equation into standard form, or into slope-intercept form. So we are going to rewrite into y equals mx plus b. So I do that by subtracting the 4x, so I have my negative 2y is equal to a negative 4x plus 9. Divide everything by 2. Y is going to be 2x minus 9 over 2. Okay? So here, there's a couple things that we have to identify. First, you need to identify your slope. So my slope here is going to be 2. Technically, it would be, say, 2 over 1, or 2. And then the other thing we have to identify is that b term. Well, remember, your y-intercept is always written as a coordinate point, which would be the coordinate point 0, 9 halves. Now, we know 9 halves to be 4 1/2. So we are going to look, and again, don't forget your sign, at negative 4 1/2. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and go down a half. And now our slope is up 2, so we're going to go up 1, up 2, over 1. And so here's that next point. And then we're going to go ahead and connect our points here. So we're going to line up our ruler and just simply draw your line. Now the biggest thing you want to remember about your line is that your arrows are going to go forever in both directions. So what did we actually do here? Well, we went up 2 points and we went over 1 point. This was how we moved our slope based on the information that we have. Okay. One thing that a lot of students struggle with is the idea of actually writing the equation that fits the information you've been given. And so here, what you've been given is we've been given a point and we've been given a slope. And we are asked to use both standard form and slope-intercept form. Standard form is where we are talking about ax plus by equals c. Slope-intercept is y equals mx plus b. So when we're given a point and a slope, we have to be able to go into our two forms. So there's an equation that we have to use in order to get there. So we are going to use what's called the point slope equation, which says y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Now the pieces of this equation that are going to change, i.e. where you insert, are going to be y1, your slope, and x1. Those are the three places where you are going to input values. The straight x and y that you see are going to stay the same. They're not going to be touched. Because that is how you're going to create your equation of your line. So here we have given you a slope and we've given you a point. So this is going to become y minus, notice my y value is a 4, so y minus 4 is equal to, my slope is negative 3/5 times x minus, my point is negative 2, so this becomes plus 2. Okay. And so now what you have to do is you have to simplify this down. So we're going to solve or rearrange this to get the equation of our line here. So the first thing we're going to do is distribute the slope. So we have y minus 4 is equal to negative 3/5 x. And then we're going to have 3/5 times 2. So this becomes negative 6/5. And then we need to add the 4. So here this becomes y equals my negative 3/5 x minus your 6/5 plus 4. So what we need to do is we need to combine these fractions. Remember, to do that you need to have a common denominator. And so overall what we're going to end with is we're going to get y is equal to negative 3/5 x plus 14/5. And this is our slope-intercept form. Now once you have slope-intercept form, we can use that form in order to go to our standard form. So the first thing that we would do is we would multiply the whole thing by that denominator. Okay. So we are starting with y equals the negative 3/5 x plus 14/5. And what we're going to do is we are going to multiply this whole thing by 5 to get rid of your denominator pieces. So this becomes 5y equals negative 3x plus 14. We're going to move, so we're going to take this x and we are going to move it to the other side of our equation, thus giving us 3x plus 5y equals 14. And when we look at this, we have standard form. Now what's important to remember about standard form is there's a couple key pieces of information. So the first thing to remember is that the ax must be positive And the second thing to remember is no fractions. Or decimals. Okay. So standard form deals with whole numbers, and that first term must be positive, whereas slope-intercept form can deal with the fractions. And so here we have our two answers, so we did what we needed to do. Alright, now if we look at this second one, notice I've given 2 coordinate points, which means the very first thing that we have to do here is we actually have to find your slope. So here we've got your slope, which again is going to be the change in y over change in x. So we can set it up as y2, so minus 5, minus 7, all over 1/2 plus 3. So here on the top we're going to have a negative 12. Across the bottom we are going to have 1/2 plus 6 over 2. If we continue to solve, this is still negative 12 on the top. On the bottom this becomes 7/2. Your fraction rules say keep the top and multiply by the reciprocal of the bottom. So this is going to become negative 24 over 7. Okay. Once you find your slope, we are now set to be able to use our form. So we have, again, y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. And here we have 2 coordinate points to choose from, so you kind of pick your favorite. Most students will lean towards using the whole numbers instead of the fractions, so we'll go ahead and do that. So this is going to become y minus 7 is equal to negative 24 over 7 times x minus a negative 3. Again, distribute. Y minus 7 equals the negative 24 over 7x plus 3 times negative 24 over 7. So here we get y minus 7 equals the negative 24 over 7x minus, because plus times minus is minus, and then 3 times 24 is going to give you 72 over 7. Add your 7 over, and we have that y is equal to negative 24 over 7x minus 72 over 7 plus my 7. And this is going to give you an overall answer of y equals negative 24 over 7x. And then we're going to have minus 23 over 7. And this is your slope-intercept form. Now again, just like before, you're going to start with your slope-intercept. So the 24 over 7x minus 23 over 7. And we are going to multiply this whole thing by that 7 to get rid of that fraction. So this becomes 7y equals a negative 24x minus 23. We're going to go ahead and move the x over, so we get 24x plus 7y is equal to negative 23. And here's our standard form. Alright, now again, we're still looking for equations that fit the given information. We're still looking for standard form and slope-intercept form. In this case, I've given you a point, but I've given you a slope of undefined. So here, what you have to remember is that if m equals undefined, then there's a few things that occur. So first, it means you have a vertical line. Second thing that happens is it means you have a x equals some number equation. So the way you figure out what the equation is you use your point. So if we're talking about an x equals equation, then here we would end up having that x equals -4. Essentially, you're just writing down what that x value is. And this would be the equation of your line, and this is both standard and slope-intercept form. Okay? And it's because this is what's considered to be the special case. Now we can look at the same thing if we're given a point and your slope is 0. So here this means if your m is 0, again you have a couple of things that we know. That first thing is that we have a horizontal line. The second thing is that you do not have an x term. And the third thing is that it means you've got a y equals b equation. So for this one, I can actually prove it, okay? And we can prove it using your point slope form. So here we have y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Okay? So here we've got our point. So this would be y plus 5 is equal to 0 times x plus 2. So if you distribute that 0 through, we end up getting y plus 5 equals 0, so y equals -5. And here's the equation of our line. Now if you look, it's also in standard form. So the trick with these two special cases is if you see that your slope is undefined, then it means simply write x equals whatever the x value is. If you see that your slope is 0, you're going to simply write y equals whatever that y value was. Okay? Alright, so I hope that helps you as you work with trying to figure out and practice forms of linear equations. If you have any questions or need additional examples, please let me know. Or if you feel like you're not sure if you're on the right track, let me know that as well. I would be more than happy to take a look at your work or work out any additional examples you feel that you may need. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed yourself as much as I did, and I look forward to seeing you next time.